Have you ever wondered why, after the age of 40, your body begins to feel unfamiliar, as if subtle shifts beneath the surface are quietly rewriting the rules of your energy, your mood, your weight, and even your confidence? You may notice bloating that wasn't there before, stubborn pounds that refuse to budge, mood swings that arrive without warning, or a sense of inflammation that lingers like a low-burning fire. Many people assume this is simply aging, an unavoidable decline dictated by time. But what if the real story is far more empowering? What if one of the most overlooked regulators of estrogen balance after 40 is not your ovaries alone, not just your adrenal glands, but your gut? Deep inside your digestive system lives a powerful community of microbes, a complex ecosystem that influences how your body processes, activates, deactivates, and eliminates estrogen. This specific collection of bacteria is known as the estrobolome, and its role becomes increasingly important as hormonal balance grows more sensitive during perimenopause and menopause. After 40, estrogen levels do not simply drop, they fluctuate. They rise, they fall, they surge unexpectedly. And in that fluctuation, the way your body metabolizes estrogen matters more than ever. Reduced digestive efficiency, including lower stomach acid and decreased enzyme production, can impair nutrient absorption, weaken gut integrity, and set the stage for microbial imbalance. When the gut becomes imbalanced, a condition known as dysbiosis, the estrobolome may shift in ways that increase the activity of an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase. This enzyme plays a pivotal role in determining whether estrogen is safely eliminated or recycled back into circulation. When recycling dominates elimination, estrogen can recirculate in more inflammatory forms, contributing to bloating, water retention, fatigue, heavy periods, and weight gain that feels resistant to effort. The connection between digestive health and hormonal health is not accidental. It is biological, measurable, and deeply interconnected. When stomach acid declines, protein digestion weakens. When enzyme production slows, nutrient breakdown becomes incomplete. Minerals, amino acids, and vitamins required for liver detoxification may not be fully absorbed. The liver depends on these nutrients to process estrogen into forms that can be excreted through bile and stool. If elimination pathways are sluggish, and if the gut microbiome is imbalanced, estrogen metabolites may be reactivated and reabsorbed. Over time, this cycle can amplify systemic inflammation and contribute to the fatigue so many people report after 40. It becomes a quiet loop. Impaired digestion leads to dysbiosis. Dysbiosis alters estrogen metabolism. Altered estrogen metabolism increases inflammation. Inflammation further disrupts gut integrity. Yet within this cycle lies opportunity. The body is not failing you. It is communicating with you. The estrobolome is not an enemy. It is a regulator awaiting support. By understanding how reduced stomach acid and enzyme production affect nutrient absorption and how these digestive changes influence hormonal detox pathways, you begin to see that bloating and fatigue are not random symptoms, but signals. Signals that your gut may need strengthening. Signals that fiber diversity, phytonutrient-rich foods, stable blood sugar, restorative sleep, and stress management are not optional luxuries, but foundational strategies. When you strengthen the gut, you influence estrogen metabolism. When you support elimination, you reduce inflammatory burden. When you reduce inflammation, you reclaim energy. And when you reclaim energy, you begin to feel like yourself again. Not a younger version, but a wiser, more resilient one. The estrobolome reminds us that hormonal balance after 40 is not solely about replacing hormones. It is about optimizing how the body processes them. It is about creating internal conditions where balance becomes possible. And once you realize that your gut bacteria help control how your body processes estrogen, you begin to see that change is not only possible, it is within reach. There is a moment in every transformation when awareness deepens into urgency, when knowledge stops being interesting and starts becoming necessary. Imagine what happens quietly, invisibly, when the gut microbiome drifts further into imbalance and the estrobolome loses its harmony. At first, the symptoms may seem small and unrelated. A little more bloating after meals, slight weight gain around the midsection, sleep that feels lighter and less restorative, mood changes that appear without clear cause. You tell yourself it is stress or simply the passing of time. But beneath those surface experiences, a more intricate story is unfolding. When dysbiosis increases, certain bacteria produce higher levels of beta-glucuronidase, the enzyme responsible for breaking apart estrogen that has already been processed by the liver for elimination. Instead of allowing that estrogen to exit the body through bile and stool, this enzyme reactivates it. The hormone is then reabsorbed into circulation, often in forms that are more inflammatory and metabolically disruptive. The body now carries an estrogen burden it thought it had already cleared. This recycling effect can quietly intensify systemic inflammation, amplify fluid retention, worsen breast tenderness, and contribute to heavy or irregular periods during perimenopause. In menopause, when estrogen levels are lower overall, improper metabolism can still create imbalance through disproportionate metabolite activity. The real suspense lies in how subtle and cumulative this process can be. It does not explode overnight. It builds gradually, layer upon layer, month after month. Reduced stomach acid compromises protein breakdown, limiting amino acids required for detox enzymes. Decreased digestive enzyme production slows the liberation of micronutrients like magnesium, zinc, and B vitamins, all of which are essential for phase 1 and phase 2 liver detoxification pathways. Without these nutrients, estrogen metabolism becomes inefficient. Meanwhile, low fiber intake reduces the binding and removal of estrogen metabolites in the colon. Slower bowel movements extend the time these metabolites remain in contact with gut bacteria, increasing the opportunity for reactivation and reabsorption. Blood sugar instability adds another dimension, as elevated insulin levels can influence ovarian and adrenal hormone signaling, compounding the metabolic stress. Stress hormones themselves alter gut permeability and microbial composition, weakening the intestinal barrier and promoting inflammatory cascades. The picture becomes clearer and more concerning at the same time. What feels like isolated symptoms is actually a network of feedback loops. Inflammation alters microbial balance. Altered microbes shift estrogen metabolism. Recycled estrogen increases inflammation. Fatigue deepens as mitochondrial function is strained by chronic inflammatory signaling. Weight gain becomes more stubborn as hormonal messaging grows distorted. The body is not malfunctioning randomly. It is responding to internal conditions that have shifted away from balance. This is where many people lose hope, believing that hormonal chaos after 40 is inevitable. But inevitability is an illusion born from incomplete understanding. The same interconnected system that can spiral toward imbalance can also move toward restoration when supported strategically. The suspense resolves not in fear, but in realization. If the gut microbiome influences estrogen recycling, then strengthening the microbiome changes the equation. If fiber binds estrogen metabolites, increasing fiber diversity alters elimination. If nutrient absorption fuels detox pathways, improving digestive capacity empowers the liver. Every small shift compounds over time, just as imbalance once did. The estrobolome is not fixed, it is dynamic. It responds to what you eat, how you sleep, how you manage stress, and how consistently you nourish your body. What once seemed like a mysterious hormonal storm becomes a pattern you can decode, and when you can decode it, you can intervene. The question is no longer whether change is possible, but whether you are willing to take ownership of the internal ecosystem that shapes your hormonal future. When you reduce inflammation, you reclaim energy. And when you reclaim energy, you begin to feel like yourself again. Not a younger version, but a wiser, more resilient one. The Estrobolome reminds us that hormonal balance after 40 is not solely about replacing hormones. It is about optimizing how the body processes them. It is about creating internal conditions where balance becomes possible. And once you realize that your gut bacteria help control how your body processes estrogen, you begin to see that change is not only possible, it is within reach. The turning point arrives when you recognize that your body is not fragile, not broken, and not destined to decline without resistance, but profoundly adaptive and waiting for direction. After 40, the conversation around hormones often centers on what is lost, yet true empowerment begins when you focus on what can be strengthened. The Estrobolome offers that perspective. Instead of chasing estrogen levels alone, you begin supporting how estrogen is processed, transformed, and eliminated. Restoration does not require extreme measures. It requires consistent, intelligent action. Start with fiber diversity, because fiber is more than roughage. Soluble fiber forms a gel-like matrix that binds estrogen metabolites in the digestive tract, helping escort them safely out of the body. Insoluble fiber adds bulk and accelerates transit time, reducing the opportunity for reactivation and reabsorption. When you increase vegetables, legumes, seeds, and whole plant foods, you feed beneficial microbes that crowd out dysbiosis and naturally regulate beta-glucuronidase activity. Phytonutrient-rich foods such as leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, berries, and herbs supply polyphenols that support microbial diversity and modulate inflammatory signaling. These compounds act like biochemical messengers, encouraging balance within the gut ecosystem. Liver support becomes equally essential because detoxification is not a trend. It is a constant biological necessity. Adequate protein intake supplies amino acids required for conjugation pathways that render estrogen water-soluble for elimination. Micronutrients such as magnesium, zinc, selenium, and B vitamins act as cofactors in enzymatic reactions that determine whether estrogen metabolites are protective or inflammatory. Stabilizing blood sugar reduces hormonal strain by minimizing insulin spikes that can disrupt ovarian and adrenal signaling. This means prioritizing balanced meals with protein, healthy fats, and fiber rather than relying on quick carbohydrates that create metabolic turbulence. Sleep is not optional recovery time. It is endocrine regulation in action. During deep sleep, the body recalibrates stress hormones and repairs intestinal integrity. Chronic sleep deprivation alters microbial composition and heightens inflammation, making estrogen balance more difficult to maintain. Stress management is not indulgent self-care, it is microbiome protection. Persistent cortisol elevation increases intestinal permeability and shifts bacterial populations toward imbalance. Practices such as breathwork, mindful movement, sunlight exposure, and consistent routines help anchor the nervous system, which in turn stabilizes gut function. As you implement these strategies, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. Bloating decreases because transit improves and inflammation quiets. Energy returns as nutrient absorption strengthens mitochondrial function. Mood stabilizes because inflammatory signaling lessens and blood sugar fluctuations soften. Weight becomes more responsive as hormonal messaging regains clarity. This is not an overnight transformation, but a layered recalibration. The same compounding effect that once intensified imbalance now amplifies restoration. You are not fighting your body, you are aligning with it. The estrobolome becomes less of a scientific term and more of a daily responsibility, a reminder that your internal ecosystem reflects your habits. Hormonal balance after 40 is not about resisting age. It is about mastering adaptation. It is about understanding that your gut bacteria help control how your body processes estrogen, and that knowledge shifts you from passive observer to active participant. Each meal becomes an opportunity to influence microbial genes. Each night of quality sleep becomes reinforcement for detox pathways. Each choice to manage stress becomes a vote for hormonal resilience. The power lies not in perfection, but in consistency. When you nurture the gut, you shape estrogen metabolism. When you support elimination, you reduce inflammatory burden. When inflammation decreases, vitality expands. This is the deeper message. Your body is capable of balance when given the right conditions. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early. When you reduce inflammation, you reclaim energy. And when you reclaim energy, you begin to feel like yourself again. Not a younger version, but a wiser, more resilient one. The Estrobolome reminds us that hormonal balance after 40 is not solely about replacing hormones. It is about optimizing how the body processes them. It is about creating internal conditions where balance becomes possible. And once you realize that your gut bacteria help control how your body processes estrogen, you begin to see that change is not only possible, it is within reach.